It's 7 o'clock. Let's go. We're ready to roll, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual Alexander School Board meeting for April. Aaron, if you would please do the roll call.
We lost Aaron. Yeah, we did. I think we did.
In lieu of treasurer, what was there?
There he is. He's upside down, sideways.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're ready for the roll call, Aaron.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Yedis?
Here.
Mr. Regan?
Here.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Mr. Davis?
Here.
All right, we'll now have our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States
of America.
And to the republic for which
stands
stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty, justice for all.
All right, good evening again, everyone. We need to have a motion to accept the agenda and approve the agenda before we can move on.
So move.
Second.
Mrs. Yedis?
Yes.
Mr. Regan?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
And Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to, I'm going to bring up public participation again for those that are watching, that we need to, we're breaking up public participation into two different sections. So right now, if you have a comment, if the public has a comment for public participation on the agenda items, now would be the time to pose those questions. According to Mr. Rice, we have for the live feed, we have about a 24-second delay. So if anyone is watching, please go ahead and submit your questions now, and they will pop up, and Mr. Rice will post those for us. But for sake of time, I want to go ahead and get Mrs. Douglas to give us a COVID-19 update, kind of like we did last meeting. Give us an update on what is going on with the school, what's going on at the state, maybe some things that are upcoming. So, Mrs. Douglas.
Yes. It's been a very busy month here at Alexander and across the state, trying to keep up with the most current information coming out of Governor DeWine's office. We have our distance learning plan in place. We worked very hard on that the first week after spring break. It seems to be running very well. When Governor DeWine came out and took the state to shelter in place and took congregating clear down to 10 people, we felt it was time for us to adjust our plan. At that point, we took our feeding the students to 3 days a week instead of 5. But we are Each day we feed the students. There are 2 lunches and 2 breakfasts in the bag. So we are actually covering 6 days a week with breakfast and lunch. The distance learning module is going very well. Our plan is in place. Administrators are staying in contact with staff through phone, email, text, Zoom, Google meetings. We have planned our distance learning model for long term. If we come back, we're good to go. If we don't, we will extend it through May. Teachers have been instructed to really focus on review, reteach, extended learning, and enrichment activities. We are communicating with parents and students through email, phone, text, social media, and other avenues. We have agents out in the field focusing on the health and well-being of our students. We are working closely with Athens County Sheriff's Department, with Athens County Children's Services, and our truant officer. Learning packets will go out April 13th, April 27th, and if needed, May 11th. Preschool registration, we're beginning to roll preschool registration and kindergarten registration out. We will have packets available for preschool registration next week, and kindergarten information will come out, and then the packets will follow. Open enrollment, we're starting to focus on open enrollment for next year. Those applications are being prepared and ready to mail out. So we will be taking all open enrollment applications through the month of May. Mark and I have looked at hotspots throughout our school district, possibly for next fall. If we should end up in this predicament next year, we would like to be able to offer some areas of hotspots where parents can connect to help with their children's academic learning. So that is just in the discovery stage. Our food program, we're feeding 6 days a week. We deliver food on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We will continue this program as long as we are out of school. We have received additional food donations from the Athens County DARE program, and a $1,000 donation came in from the Athens County Food Bank with Karen Bright. Huge thank you to the supporting organizations. Everybody has come together and worked diligently as a team. I have to commend our staff. One concern we have is keeping our staff healthy and practicing social distancing. So we've tweaked our schedules of work, but everyone is doing a fabulous job. The first week, we served 2,568 meals. The second week, which was last week, we served 3,648 meals. So as I predicted, slowly the numbers will begin increasing. Outreach, we have Larry, Lee Raines, and Kent working as our backup partners. If there's any packet that is not picked up for distance learning, they go out to the communities and deliver them. Every time they visit a home, they do take food with them for those homes. Wellness checks are being conducted. Larry has had 45 contacts, and Athens County Children just about the same amount. We try to stay in constant communication. We meet in the cafeteria in the mornings just to update each other. Agencies, Health Recovery Services, and Hopewell, they are still servicing our students through telehealth and video conferencing, so that is continuing on. The 8th grade trip, we were down to the wire to make a decision if we would do the trip this year or postpone. The recommendation was to cancel the trip for this year, but if those 8th graders and their parents want the trip for next year, the agencies are booking those, and we can piggyback. We can take 2 grade levels next year. Mr. Dosick is working with Aaron Sherm to reimburse families who have paid for that trip. The prom and the graduation we have on hold. We would like to see what the governor's next steps are and possibly make decisions on those the first part of May. Every week we get together, the administrative team, we meet, we talk about what's working, what's not working, what do we need to tweak. I've spoken to a lot of parents. They seem very happy with the system. The teachers have been in the building working on making the packets, getting them collated and off to the paraprofessionals who stuff the packets and get them ready for Monday's distribution. Any questions?
Anybody questions? Mark, how are we looking on public participation? We have any questions yet?
No.
No? Okay.
Lindy, I had a question. With the feeding of the students, when I did the math, that comes down to 300, and this past week, if every kid, basically we fed 304 students, if it was the same kid getting a meal twice a day, picking up all those meals. So 304, and yet the number of folks who qualify for low and reduced lunch is like 550. So what about those extra 150 students who even qualify for the low and reduced lunch?
They just have to call and request or show up at one of our pickup points. That's
But
their
are we reaching out to
responsibility.
them?
We have it on the website. We've sent out the newsletters. Yes, I feel we have reached out to them.
And the food from the food pantry, last time we talked about the possibility, it felt like it was remote, of feeding the parents, one of the parents in the families. Did someone look into what the governor's office thought about that? Or are we using the food pantry money for that, or is the food pantry funds only going to feeding the kids?
The food pantry funds are going specifically for the kids. Feeding the adults, I don't think that we would meet the requirement for that for our public purpose. The governor's office and people we reached out to said that would be up to your legal counsel.
And have we talked to them yet?
I did. I talked to our attorney at Ricker, and she felt the same way, that would be a questionable use of funds because it's not a direct resource for our students. We'd be using those funds for parents or adults. Her other comment was that there are other programs available for those parents to use as resources for that. So that was what would cause her to be concerned about using our resources for that. Now, if we had other source of funding, like this food pantry money or some other kind of donation or something from a charitable organization that wanted to partner with us, then that might be something we could do. But I think the food pantry donation was only $1,000, so that wouldn't go real far as far as providing meals to parents.
Okay.
But I do know that the state they have passed some legislation to help assist with that type of thing. They expanded SNAP benefits and food stamps, so that all of the families who qualify for those programs, they are all now getting the maximum amount. So whereas maybe before they only qualify for a portion of food stamps or a smaller amount, now they're all getting the maximum amount. And they also did an automatic extension for 6 months. So anyone who was scheduled to expire in February, March, or April, they automatically did a 6-month extension for their qualification, so they don't even have to reapply. They just automatically qualify for an additional 6 months. So the state has done some things on their own to help with those kinds of things.
Did we lose Fred?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we're working on it. Someone's over there with him now.
Okay, thank you.
Can he hear us?
Yes, he can hear us.
Okay.
Fred, you can come in here if you need to.
And I don't know if this is a question for Lindy or Aaron. I'll wait till Fred gets here.
Fred's here.
So I had a question. have any costs gone down because of this? Food costs? I mean, if we're only serving enough food for 305 students a week, the sheriff's program, are we having to still pay that even though there's probably not a safety officer in the building?
No, we're
electricity?
definitely, I'm sorry, we're definitely going to experience some savings. It's not going to be like $300,000 worth of savings, but we will definitely have some savings overall from the annual budget. Just for like the thing you mentioned with the resource officer, that was on a per day basis. So since they're not here anymore, we won't have that expense.
Yeah.
The point you just brought up with the food, that's actually a negative. That actually costs us money because our fixed cost, which is our labor, doesn't go away. We're required to continue to pay that labor out. So we actually make money off of our food sales because the cost of our food is less than the price that we sell it for, plus, the reimbursements we get from the federal government. So that's actually a negative thing when instead of selling 700 meals a day, we're only selling 300. That's actually costing us money. There's no savings there. But there's other savings too, like utilities. I mean, we're going to save a good chunk in utility costs. And then there's still some of the unknown things that we haven't talked about yet that we will need to address at some point when it comes to spring supplementals and things like that. But there definitely will be some savings for sure.
Transportation's got to be down too, I assume.
Transportation's another one. Fuel, we'll definitely have some saving on diesel fuel.
We're only running 5 buses 3 days a week. And then we do have some buses that go out to the homes, but diesel fuel and the cost of running buses should drop dramatically.
Yeah.
And
Our
how
fixed
is
labor
staff
cost
doing in
will
all
still
of
be
this?
there, but
And how is staff doing in all of this?
I think they're doing well. It's a new way of learning and teaching. Morale seems to be very good. I spend about every morning in the building touching base. There are some stress levels that, they are essential workers. They are expected to be here, but also keeping themselves healthy, keeping themselves safe, and taking care of their family. So I think there are some stress factors there.
Thank you.
How are the packets going? Have they all been delivered or gone out to all the students?
Yes, what we did is we have packet pickup on Mondays, and any packets that are left over, we divide them up early Tuesday morning. They go out on the buses, 5 pickup points. Some parents pick up their packets there. After Tuesday, then early Wednesday morning, we look at what's left. We take what's left and we divide it between Mr. Raines, Larry Sisson, the truant officer, Kent Feltz, and they go out to the homes and home deliver to certain students. Then the few packets that remain by Thursday are mailed out.
And how's our turn in? I know we've only had one turn in. Have we got them all back?
We got, I know that we had a turn in. They've come in various ways. We quarantined the packets for 48 hours. Then the aides come back in and they collate the packets to the teachers. So then it's up to the teachers to get a hold of the kids if the work did not get turned in. But we had a huge come through.
Do you have any feeling what percentage of the kids did not come back in that we've had to reach back out to?
Very few. I think there may have been some, but I've got students right now that are clear out in Indiana, and dad's here. They're out in Indiana with mom, and we're transferring packets through mail. So the teachers are working on that. They're to let us know if there's kids that they didn't get the packets from, maybe we need to go back out to the home. But I know some of the kids that I would not have thought we would get the packets from, they have been returned.
So the natural follow-up is what happens if we don't get a packet back from someone?
Then the teachers will have to follow up with that family.
I'm talking at the end of all this. We haven't got back any, let's say packet 1 never comes back from 5 kids.
Well, that would be based on their grades, and those would be zeros in the grade book. We have summer school that we offer for kids who fail or do not get their credits. Those would be the students that would be eligible for summer school.
Lindy, what's the what's the process in place for parents who might be struggling or have questions with their child's coursework? Do they call the school secretary, the high school office, elementary office, and then they get dispatched, or is there a mechanism to call the teacher directly? How's that work?
We have encouraged parents that if they have any questions or concerns, call or email the office or contact their child's teacher. So a lot of the contacts being made currently are with the parent and the teacher. That's constantly going back and forth. I probably received 5 emails from parents with concerns. So I sent those over to the building principals, and the building principals followed up, and we got things taken care of. One was missing a history assignment. One was missing the second page of a packet. So it seems like communication's flowing back and forth pretty well.
Is an email preferred, phone call? Does it make a difference?
I think either one is good. I know we've told our staff, check your emails constantly. I think email is probably the quickest, fastest way. It also depends on where these families are located, whether they have accessibility to emails or if their cell phone service is very poor. Now, I've had teachers say, I've reached out to this parent and their phone is shut off. I said, well, they may have run out of minutes. But that parent may later on that night send in an email where they've gone, where they can get onto Wi-Fi or a hotspot.
Okay.
So technology is a big struggle for us in this rural area.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any idea where there are hotspots already at that we can point people to or post a listing at all? Has anyone looked into that? I know we can't set up 1,000 of our own, but some places, libraries presumably still have theirs turned on.
That we were excited to use the libraries as a resource for our parents, but as this progressed into shelter in place, they closed. But I know some parents are driving where they can connect to a hotspot. And that's what we were thinking next year. It would be nice for Alexander to work with Shade Community Center and come up with a way to connect where Alexander Local could have a hotspot in that area of our district where parents could pull in and get that accessibility. Another one would be the New Marshfield Fire Department, the Columbia Township Fire Department, the Alexander Township Garage. These are just areas we're thinking about. If we could get 5 or 6 throughout our community, that would be a big asset to parents. I know some parents are struggling with the work being on Wi-Fi because now their Wi-Fi bills are going up where kids are on there more and they don't have a unlimited package. So they're like, holy cow, now my Wi-Fi bill has increased. So that seems to be an issue for some parents right now.
The school's Wi-Fi is on though, correct?
Yes. And Mark can tell you a little bit about that. People can pull in our parking lot and connect. So if they would need to do that, they can just practice social distancing.
And that's 24/7, right?
I think so.
Oh, so you can't sit in the parking lot and get on the Wi-Fi? Cannot. So basically then all of the parents in our district are relying on their own ability to pay for Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mark, how far, let's say if they walked up to the building door, or how far does that Wi-Fi signal penetrate outside? I mean, if they walked up to the cafeteria door, even though it's going to be locked, do you think they'd be able to get a signal that way? Okay.
Cover the front lot or whatever, but I just haven't gotten any hard prices on it.
Okay. Do we have any other comments before we move on?
Are kids on campus doing anything or they're just gone?
Kids on campus, they're pretty much gone. We haven't had much interaction with them. Yeah. They're not even sure what to do right now because you can't congregate. You can't go to the children's homes. I think they're pretty much at a standstill.
Okay.
Now, what we did talk about, Lucy, is if in the event we come out of this and the social distancing is lifted from the state, we are hoping that July or August, if we want to pick up where we left off with the after school program for kids, for the elementary, that we could pick that program back up and offer that to the families and children before they come back to school at the end of August. So if we could offer a 6-week program to enhance their education and fill some of those gaps from not being in school, that we would like to do that with kids on campus.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And possibly including the pre-K folks, because I remember some kindergarten teachers talking about how it's just really hard to get the younger kids are coming in less and less prepared. So whatever we could do over the summer, I mean, it's going to be hard on everyone, but especially the young ones.
Yes.
Not that I wouldn't want my kids who are in junior high and high school to be in some type of structured program then too, but.
Agreed.
I'll jump in real quick. I know we had a couple of talks about this, but has there been any talk about at the each individual side of the building or as a district as a whole of what standard, setting a standard for the packets themselves, as well as contacting what parents can expect the contact from the amount of contact, as well as the coming back, that should be expecting teachers should be expecting parents and or students to be getting back to them.
I think that's all at a building level. I know the principals are working with the teachers daily. The communication I'm hearing is wide open. So if parents reach out to teachers, they are responding. We've made that clear to them. They need to answer their emails. They need to look at their emails every day. They need to take phone calls. They know how to call families and have their personal cell phone numbers blocked so it doesn't come up. But sometimes we email a parent says, I'm going to call you and it will come up as an unknown number. Please answer when I call. And then the parent's expecting that phone call. So all that's handled at a building level.
Sorry, I forgot I muted myself. Thank you.
What about the library? Is there the need for students? I mean, I guess they can go. Is there the need for somehow if students need to check books out of the library? I mean, I have a lot of books here, so I like reading. Maybe other people don't need it, but have we thought about how the library could fit in and book resources could fit in and online resources, because kids have access to online resources also through the library? Has that been looked at yet? That's probably lower on the totem pole.
Lower on the totem pole, and once again, that would be classroom and building decisions. I know we have a lot of electronic books that kids can access, especially the grades 6 through 12. And then if there was really a book they wanted out of the library, all they have to do is email their teacher and we would connect with Dawn and Nancy and get it for them. And I know there was one child that got a hold of their teacher and said, please, I'd love to have another book to read. Could you help me? And the teacher did locate the book and put it in their packet to go home the following week. So if those
So
requests
students-
are made, we would accommodate.
Okay, but we're not getting the word out yet. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I would like to basically echo the same sentiment of last meeting. First and foremost, thank you to all of the staff for all the efforts that you're putting in. I'll repeat, I'm almost sound like a broken record, but there's not a school district in the state of Ohio that had a contingency plan written out to deal with what we're dealing with right now. To our parents, I know the board, we've had many of private phone calls over the last month, talking to each other, bouncing ideas off of each other. The fact that we understand the trouble or the plight that you're going through as a parent. I'm going to pick on Blake for just a second. Blake has what, three young kids at home? Three. Two of them are school age, or all of them?
The one wishes he was, but two.
Okay. But so he's got two school age young kids at home. But he also has his job at the university. So Blake, I think, is a typical example of what a lot of our parents are going through. I'll admit I have it fairly easy. My daughter's a junior. She's pretty self-sufficient. I don't have to spend a lot of time with her. She's disciplined enough to do her work independently. But for our parents with younger students, we do appreciate the hardship that all of this is causing you. We're trying the best that we can to come up with the easiest way forward. We unfortunately our students are in this is week 4. We were in spring break for a week. This is the 4th week that we've been doing the distant learning. Is it the best? Absolutely not. Do we have a better solution? Not at this time. So as I asked at the last meeting, I asked for patience, and I think the community has responded. Yeah, there's going to be things that work well, things that don't. But again, just to recap, thank you for your patience. Thank you to all the staff for everything that you're doing, going above and beyond to get us through this time. And the parents, I mean, we're trying to listen. We're trying to do everything we can to make this as easy as possible on you. But unfortunately, it's not going to be an easy task. So with that, Mark, any agenda item for public participation?
Jay, we had a couple comments. We do have an online library, grades 6 through 12 can access. All they have to do is go to our website and it is there, and they can download ebooks for free. And apparently public libraries, their Wi-Fi is accessible from the parking lots. So if you go to Albany Library, Athens Library, you can access their Wi-Fi.
And I think there could be a hotspot out by me in New Marshfield, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think the library has an outpost there.
Okay.
So
the message that came through says that there's 7 parking lots as well as hotspot locations in Amesville, New Marshfield.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in person to the library, I mean, that's closed, but you could go to the parking lot and have Wi-Fi access for those who don't have it. Is that what I'm hearing?
According to the messages that came in the
Yes.
chat, that is correct.
At the libraries, yes. And before they closed, the library did have hotspots. You could sign one out just like you were signing a book out. You could sign a hotspot out. But I don't know if that's currently happening now that they've closed their doors.
Okay, so our students and our parents do have options when it comes to the Wi-Fi. Might not be the most convenient, but at least there is options for everyone.
And one thing we focused on with Alexander, because the Wi-Fi and internet is not dependable throughout our county. That's why we just chose to go by paper packets. So what I would expect you to do online, if you don't have internet, you can use the paper packet instead.
Okay. All right. We'll wrap that up unless there's any other comments. Okay. We will move then to the normal business side of our agenda, and we'll start with treasurer's recommendations. In item A, we have, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2020 regular meeting.
So move. I'll second.
Who moved? Was that you, Blake?
Fred,
Oh, Fred. Okay. Sorry, this is going to get a little complicated here. Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mr. Davis.
Yes.
All right, letter B, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the financial report for the month ending March 31st, 2020.
Moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mr. Davis.
Yes.
All right, letter C, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following transfers. And these are just our normal school-wide pool transfers that we do every month.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mr. Davis.
Yes.
And letter D, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations. We have a $500 donation from White's Meal to food service, and the OU, what is that? I hate to be ignorant. OU what?
Rotaract Club?
I think that's a benevolence volunteering club to make the world a better place.
It is Rotaract?
That's what I would say it is,
Okay. I
Rotaract.
just wanted to make sure it wasn't a misspelling or anything. Okay, so
I would have
anyway,
thought Rotary.
yeah, I was thinking Rotary myself, but Rotaract Club for $1,014 for food service.
Second.
Uh-oh, we lost Aaron. There we go.
Yeah,
Yep, there he is.
He's back
yeah, I
sideways.
lost you guys. So,
You look better sideways.
It fell.
so where we were at when I lost you all, I don't know why it's doing that.
You do roll call for,
Item D.
There we go. Yeah, we were taking the roll. I lost you when we were taking the roll on the item D.
Mhm.
Actually, no, it was actually item C is when I just got disconnected. I was waiting for Fred to answer.
And I said yes.
Okay. And now I don't have a motion or a second on item D. So if you could tell me that again.
I think it was Blake and then I, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So Blake moved and Fred second. Okay. This is item D for the donations. So I'll take the roll. Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Okay, now moving on to superintendent's recommendations. Letter A, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the enclosed substitute aid and teacher lists as recommended by the Athens Megs ESC superintendent.
Moved.
Second.
Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Okay, letter B, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the enclosed resolution regarding distance learning.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded.
Was that you, Josh, that moved?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
And to follow that up with letter C, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the enclosed distance learning plan.
Moved.
Second.
Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Letter D, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the enclosed memorandum of understanding with the ALEA dated April 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
This is the one that extends the timeline, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Letter E, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the bid and authorize the purchase of 2 77-passenger regular education school buses awarded through the META Purchasing Cooperative School Bus Program at a cost of $92,997 each.
Aaron, you might want to talk about the 2 grants we received for school buses.
Yeah, we these are the 2 replacement buses that were part of the regular normal replacement schedule for our school buses. And they were included in next year's budget. But we also were awarded 2 EPA grants for $20,000 per bus. So we will actually get a $40,000 in grant funds reimbursement after we purchase these 2 buses. So that's going to save us $40,000 that we weren't really expecting. We applied for it. We apply for it pretty much every year, but almost everybody does. So then it ends up going into like a lottery system. And then some years you get picked, some years you don't. And we just got lucky and we were picked this year. So we're going to get $40,000 back from them. And now, in addition to that, the state, as part of their new biennium budget for this year and next year, they included funding for school bus funding for schools to use to purchase school buses. It's the first time the state's actually provided funding directly to schools for purchasing buses in several years. We just found out how that program was even going to work. They finally put the information out. And our share of the funding at this point, it all could change depending on if any districts decide that they don't want to use theirs, then their pot of money that they're allotted will go back into the pool and will get redistributed out to the other schools. We may or may not see any more of it, but we were actually awarded an additional, I don't remember the exact figure, but it's $40-some thousand from the state as well. The only thing we're not clear on yet is if we can use that $40,000 towards these 2 buses that we're going to purchase right here, or if we have to use it for an additional bus. And the reason that is because there's guidelines that state that they have to be used to replace a bus you're currently using on a daily basis. Whereas these two buses that we're replacing for this grant are not being used on a daily basis because they were at the time we applied for the grant. But then when the school year started, they went to our reserve fleet. And so we can't change those buses for the EPA grant money. So we just don't know if the $40,000 from the state will be able to be applied to these two buses, or if that will have to go towards an additional bus. But either way, I mean, it's a total of over $80,000 that it's going to save us. If we do have to use the 40 from the state on an additional bus, we can use that as one of our replacements that was scheduled for the following year. So we could buy it towards the end of next fiscal year as one of our replacement buses for the fiscal year 22, if that makes sense.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
So you need a motion, Aaron?
Yeah, we need a motion.
So move.
Second?
Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes?
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
And lastly, item F, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following policies for inclusion into the Policy and Procedures Manual as recommended by OSBA.
Jay, our meetings are probably canceled till this is all over.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've just put everything on a
the
stand.
earliest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So move.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, Mrs. Yedis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mr. Davis.
Yes.
All right, item 6, is business initiated by board members. Does anybody have any items they'd like to bring up for discussion?
I do have a piece of old business to bring up. Lindy, would you mind giving us an update on where the ARC is? I know that it's been 5 months since we authorized funds. Construction's continued even during the shutdown, so there's been progress made, but can you update us on where that is?
Sure. We've continued the progress on the ARC. The lighting is 80% complete. You're welcome to walk through there. It's very, very bright. We utilized the lights coming out of the gymnasium when we did our upgrade for the main campus. We recycled those lights to the ARC, and they're pretty much 80% done. Very nice and bright. The basketball drop-down hoops, the purchase order is ready to go. We were able to get 4 drop-down electronic hoops for around $20,000. The elevator is here. We're waiting for installation. The company called and said they should be down next week to install the elevator. As soon as that is done, Don Hawk will come in behind them and finish some of the brick laying or block laying around the elevator entrance. The main gymnasium floor has to go out to bid because it should be over $50,000. So we asked Jim Thomas for a bid package so we can submit that. He said he should have that done for us next week. All the inside drywall is completed and the doors are hung and completed. Stump and Daily Concrete will be pouring the concrete pad for the fire escape stairwell to the 2nd floor. We are just waiting on them. The welding of the fire escape has been ordered. Todd Bird is handling that. Occupancy, we should be able to get the occupancy for the entire building once the elevator is installed and the lighting is finished. All the painting on the interior is complete. So we are getting very close to a complete product.
How are we doing budget-wise with what was allocated in November?
I'll let Aaron talk a little bit about that. We are under budget right now. The two things that we've held off on are the big fans and the gymnasium floor. The fans will be the last thing that goes in. We want to get the gymnasium floor in, but we are working very hard to stay under budget, and right now we are.
Okay.
Aaron?
Yeah. I mean, those original estimates, there were some areas there where we're a little underestimated, overlooked some of the interior doors and drywall work and stuff that was needed done. Once we discovered those additional items that needed to be done that weren't part of those original estimates, you kind of had to make some sacrifices there in order to stay under the amount that was approved by the board to use towards the building. So that's why there won't be any finishing of the upper floor, the upper level. There will not be enough money in the $250,000 that was budgeted. There will not be enough money in there to do the upper floor.
What Brian and I talked about that upper floor, and to keep it maintenance free, his thoughts are for that walking track. We cleaned the concrete and we put a skid-proof polish on it instead of a rubberized flooring. Skid-proof polish might run us $5,000 or $10,000, where the rubberized flooring would have ran around $60,000. So to stay under budget, if something has to be given, it'll be the rubberized flooring on the second floor.
And then another thing, like Lindy mentioned, there's $20,000 estimated for the big fans. Those have kind of been put off to the back burner for now. Now, if you remember the last time that the committee came in and spoke to us, they said that there was additional donation money that would be flowing in. So once that money flows in down the road, there would be options to use that to do additional things if the board chose to do that. But those things have had to go to the back burner. Just like Lindy mentioned, the basketball hoops. There was like $20,000 for 4 basketball hoops, retractable basketball hoops. That wasn't included in the original budget estimates at all anywhere. It must have been overlooked. But the problem is, if you don't install those basketball hoops before you put the finished flooring down on the first level, you're going to have people trying to install basketball hoops and lining the basketball hoop up with lines that are already painted on a floor, which would be very difficult. When the process should be, you install the basketball hoops, then those can be lowered down and put into place where they're going to be, and then they can paint off the lines off of the basketball hoops when they're already in place, rather than the other way around. So that's
those
why
will be installed, and then we'll do the floor, so it will match up.
So
yeah.
I just want to make sure that we are not under budget. We're cutting from the budget to make ourselves within our budget.
Yes. Some of the items that were on the original estimates have to be put aside in order to get the things that were overlooked that need to be done.
Right.
See, the second floor is budgeted at $60,000, Blake. If we don't do that, that's going to be probably a $50,000 saving, where we can finish up the basketball hoops and the fans. So right now we're picking and choosing the most needed items to complete this building.
Right, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that we're not under budget. We are staying within our budget and canceling things off that we.
Right, absolutely. Yes, Blake, that is right.
And
we will not and cannot exceed that $250,000 without board action. So we have to stay within that appropriated amount.
My question would be, what is the consequences of not having those fans and the rubberized flooring to what we thought was a finished product with the $250,000? What are the long-term consequences of that?
On the second flooring, I don't think there's a consequence, Blake. You're just choosing to go a cheaper route. Instead of that rubberized flooring you put down that is more maintenance required, if you go with a skid-proof coating, that will be a lot less maintenance to maintain that. And it's a money saving. So down the road, if we want to add the rubberized flooring, we can do that if the funds are available.
Yeah, but what's the consequence of it? I mean, if it's you're getting the same result for $5,000 versus $60,000, I'm trying to figure out why we were thinking $60,000 for the first place. And so what is the consequence? Like not having a fan in there, I know that that's got to have to do with circulation of the air. And so is it just going to be unbearably hot in there in the summer, or we can't properly heat in the winter? Are those fans necessary that we just cut to stay within the budget?
I mean, according to Nate, even when he proposed those original estimates, the fans weren't exact 100% necessary, but they were definitely recommended because of the things you mentioned, air circulation. And I don't know that it would make it so that you can't heat and cool it, but it definitely helps assist. The fans would assist in making it more efficient, making it be able to be heated and cooled more efficiently. And the reality is there may still be enough left in the budget to put those fans in. We just don't know at this point. We'll have to see.
In one of your
what the biggest thing that we're going to have to that's going to be the determining factor is when the bids for the finishing the first floor come in, because that's going to be a big big project.
Yeah.
So so we have a really large chunk set aside for that, but depending on where that bid comes in at, that might free up some money to do the fans or whatever. So
Have we got any initial bids? Because I know, like, from the talks and the numbers I've seen, everything seems to be coming over and over what we budgeted, over what we budgeted.
some things are, some things aren't. Like the lighting came in under budgets.
The preliminary estimates, and we haven't put it out for bid yet, but the preliminary estimates for the finishing the first floor came in pretty close to what Nate had estimated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm less concerned about that first floor coming in way over, although anything's possible. But I'm more hopeful that maybe it'll come in a little less and then it'll free up some more funds.
So, according to your numbers right now, that initial estimate, where are we at under budget with cutting the fans?
What we've spent so far, Blake, I sent you in an email, so you'll have to pull that email and look at those numbers.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have that in front of us.
The short version, Blake, I was looking at the same email while everybody's talking. Granted, this could be a little bit skeptical because I'm doing this on the fly, but if we take out the finishing of the upper floor and we take out the fans, we're sitting at about 105, 107 to complete. And according to the numbers that we had before, there's 126 of the funds remaining. So that means for the elevator, it looks like the fire escapes in the numbers that we were talking about. For the elevator, for any concrete, for any of the cameras that were talked about last month, you're sitting at about 20K left, whether you have overbids or you have to fund those things.
Right.
And we do need to hope for that first floor to come in at or below, because we're 20% over. So if it holds true to history, we're hosed.
What was the cameras and stuff you're talking about? I'm not.
They were discussed at the last meeting about
Cameras would come out of the grant, the
okay.
Bureau of Workers' Comp grant.
Okay, that's good.
Oh, okay. So those were covered then.
Yes.
Yep. And I know that I believe that email that went out, Josh had the basketball hoops listed at 30,000. We got that second quote came in at 19 something. So that was
I compensated that. I compensated for that, and my 107 left to go.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents, but as we get near the number of expenditures, that those fans over time will pay, maybe not necessarily for the whole cost, but when you're circulating, you know, in the wintertime, all of our hot air is going to be on the second floor, and all of our kids are, if they're playing basketball, having that air circulate, it will reduce our utility costs.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, it might be an expenditure up front, but the fact that if we don't have them and circulating that air, we're going to be wasting a lot of energy on our utilities.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions or any other board business?
Yeah, I'd just like to add and follow up on what you had said about the job, the staff, everyone at the school's done above and beyond. This is unprecedented. There's no way to figure out what the best plans are. It's been done on the fly, and I think our staff and administration, everybody involved has done an outstanding job, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred. Okay.
For the sake of the echo, I'll throw mine in there too.
All right. Before we move on, anything else?
I'll just throw it out there. I talked a little bit. I didn't know if we have to do this in a board meeting and try to figure this out. If any of you four would like to go in to buy the staff lunch one day, I don't know if that has to be something done at the building. That's something I would like to. I mean, I don't mean out of the school budget. I mean out of my budget. If any of you four would like to join in.
Staff appreciation.
Yeah, I think that those people are frontline for us. It's something I would like to provide that. You don't have to answer or anything like that. I just didn't know if I had to do it. And Aaron, you can tell me, is that something I have to do in a board-like meeting to have a discussion with them?
To talk about buying staff a lunch.
Yeah, out of personal funds, not any school funds. I'm not 100% sure on what I'm allowed to talk about with more outside of.
Yeah, I think you'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, if you did a charitable work to the staff, that's between you and the board members.
Okay.
We've had donuts come in for the cafeteria kitchen workers this week from just local community members showing their appreciation and just different things. It really boosts the staff's morale to know that they are appreciated. So they've done a tremendous job. Mondays are our craziest day, and Mondays are the days that majority of the staff are here, especially your non-certified working.
So Mondays?
Yes. Like the packet pickup drop-off days, we have a very good system down pat now, and your janitors, your paraprofessionals, they're all working together.
And just for clarification purposes, I know we're just talking about lunch here, so it's a minor issue, but I mean, we're not allowed, staff is actually not allowed to have gifts from anyone from outside. So the mechanism would probably be a donation to the district, and then we can make the arrangements to provide the staff a lunch from a donation or something like that. So, but we can discuss that.
I'll let you tell me what I can and cannot do.
You better check with your wife first. She's got the purse.
And then keep in mind your donor wall that will be put up, that will be paid out of the Boosters Building Fund. So that's the last piece of the arc that will be put in place.
Okay. And they're holding money back for completion of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Two things. Blake, just let me know and I'll do it. You be Bill Murray. I'll be the guy who's behind him, supporting him all the way, okay? And second of all, Lindy, did you mention a date about a possible completion of the ARC? I guess the donor wall going up, is that ideally before August? September? What are
I
we
would
looking?
think so, but I think everything slowed down when shelter in place was put into effect. We were hoping to have the building open, ready to go by June 1st, but some of the companies are still working and some are not.
Okay.
So, but I think we can have everything done but the gym floor and the wall by June. I think that's feasible. We should be able to get occupancy without the floor or the wall.
And it sounds like the floor is the big thing.
Yeah, that's going to be the major summer project, probably. Yeah.
Thank you.
We had a quick comment here that someone sent in. It says the Spartan Athletic Club would like to donate their leftover cases of water from the concession for the school to use in bagged lunches and families in need. We have several cases available. Thank you. I think we can say we'll accept and thank you for that generous offer.
Yes, and anytime they want to bring the water over, I can let Dan in the kitchen know, and they pull up behind the school to the loading dock of the kitchen. We can unload it there, and then Dan can get it ready to go with the bagged lunches.
Okay. Anything else? Board reports? As far as I can tell, we don't have any public participation on any regular issues. Mark, I'll let you jump in here if I'm not seeing anything. Otherwise, we'll move on. Nope. Okay, so our next regularly scheduled meeting is May 20th. I guess I would like to preface that with let's use that as a placeholder. But I would say we will have another meeting sooner than that, especially when the governor makes his next announcement, whether we actually are going to go back to school on May 1st or if we're done for the year. So is everybody agreeable to May 20th, or do we just want to schedule something before that right now? What's the opinion here?
The next announcement's
Lindy,
coming.
go ahead.
I presume the next announcement, it's safe to say probably the next announcement, if there's going to be one, is going to happen that week before May hits, right?
I would say anything major will come out towards the end of April.
Okay.
My thoughts are I would like to have the board meeting sooner than May 20th. May 20th is the end of the school year. We have a graduation of seniors of the rosters that we need to approve. We have employee contracts to approve. I think there's a lot of work that we need to do before May 20th.
Okay. So do we want to do it like we did here, like say the first or second Wednesday? What's like
6th is the first Wednesday.
May 6th? Yeah. Is that good for everybody? Do we want to? What's everybody's ideas here?
We're not going anywhere. We're here.
We are here for the duration, Lucy.
Okay.
I think if the 6th gives enough time to get packets together and for the administration to be able to talk about what the recommendation for finishing things out. And we're planning on, if this happens to be the worst case, we're out. That's what we're really talking about.
Sure.
Yes.
If the 6th gives enough time for the administration to get together and talk about what the plans are and have a chance to vet it well, then I think the 6th is great.
Yes, I think we have April carved out now, and we know what everyone is doing through April. So we've almost hit an autopilot, but now the administration can get together and start talking about May. what are the opportunities that we will hold in May? Should we come back to school or should we not come back to school? What are the avenues that we're looking at taking? But I think we can have a lot of that done by May 6th.
So tentatively, the next board meeting will be May 6th, 7 o'clock. Either virtually again, like we're doing now, or maybe in person if some of these restrictions are relaxed, to be determined. Okay.
Motion for adjournment?
I was gonna say, anything else? Motion to adjourn, Fred? I'll second it.
Okay, Mrs. Edis,
Yes.
Mr. Regan,
Yes.
Mr. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
and Mr. Davis.
Yes, everyone stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
For putting it together.